I was taken to his house, and the woman said, "Is this it?" And I thought, I'm leaving. And when I went to go out the back door, they grabbed me.
Hello and welcome to our Shine Brightly podcast. We're so thankful that you have joined us today, where we spotlight campaigns that are on GiveSendGo of people that are making a difference, that have stories that they want to share with people like you. This is a remarkable story of a campaign that's on GiveSendGo that is raising money for a film they want to create. But it's bigger than just this film. There's a story behind it. And I really think you're going to be interested in what we're going to talk about today. So sit back, listen up, and enjoy our talk with Niki and Christopher. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having
Thank you for having us.
So in today's incredible episode, we have Niki, like I said, and Christopher. Niki Rowe Cross is a survivor, an author, and an advocate. And Christopher is the director bringing her powerful story to the big screen. Niki, so as I was reading your story, I saw that you were trafficked as a 15-year-old, and that caught my attention because I assume you lived in the United States. Is that correct?
I did.
Wow. So that is just mind-blowing. So do you mind telling us a little bit about how this happened as a 15-year-old? Where were you living and how did this happen?
Well, I had gone to a concert. Long story short, because of time, I'm going to edit this a little bit. At 9, I had been molested by a relative and never sought counseling, never told my parents. And so I started to rebel. And I would run away from home. They'd always bring me back, run away from home, always bring me back. And I came from a very loving church-going home. But when you are traumatized, you look for anesthesia.
Sure.
In any way you can find it. So basically, I ran away and I ended up in Columbus, Georgia, where I was singing open mic night. And this guy walks in and he's like Brad Pitt, Mark Wahlberg rolled together. And he's telling me how beautiful I am, how well I can sing. And he says, "You know, if you were to come back for Thanksgiving with me to Ohio, my mother's got tons of money and she will pay for you to get a demo done." That's everything that a teenager wants to hear, especially that has a dream of music. So unfortunately, despite my friends' warnings that they felt something sketchy about him, my thought was, oh, they're just jealous. So I got in the car with him and we took off to Ohio. But almost immediately after leaving Columbus, the abuse began. Being slapped across the face, being called expletive names. I was taken to his house, which was by no means a mansion. The woman that lived there, it was her and 3 men that were sitting at the table when we walked in. And when we walked in, there was definitely no Thanksgiving. And the woman said, "Is this it?" And I thought, that's enough. I've had enough. I'm leaving. And when I went to go out the back door, they grabbed me, drugged me up to the 3rd floor attic, chained my ankle to the floor, and I was raped multiple times. We literally had a bucket for a toilet, and there was 3 of us. There was a young girl about my age and her brother. And one of the things in 2020, I had a TBI from a car accident. And with all the cognitive therapy, a lot of memories started coming back.
Sure.
And one of them is that the young man, he died. I don't remember the cause, but they left him there. I mean, till he turned blue, then he turned gray. And then the rats came in and then they drug him down the stairs. And the other thing that I remembered, there was a man who would come in. He came in about 3 or 4 times. And my trigger color is orange because he always had this orange scarf. And he would strangle me to the point of passing out, resuscitating me, passing out, resuscitating, and then he would rape me and he'd leave. And I got one of the worst beatings of my life because I scratched his face one time. And after leaving my therapist's office one night, I had set my DVR for a documentary called A Date with Death. And the minute I saw this person's face, it was the serial killer, Rodney Alcala, the dating game killer. And I literally went to the bathroom and was sick. And a few months later, one of the guys who was being labor trafficked, named John, he whispered in my ear one night, pretending like he was checking the chains. He said, and I believe this was God convicting him. He said, "You don't belong here. I'm going to help you." And 2 nights later, he told Daryl, which was, and I don't even know if that's his real name. He said, "If we take her downtown Akron, sit her at the bar, we'll make a lot more money. We can park the van in the back. I'll take the money." You know the story. So as we're sitting there, John leans over while Daryl's working the room. And John said to me, "When I say run out the front door." I didn't trust him. I thought, "No, I've been begging you for a year to help me. You're just trying to trap me or test me." But when Daryl came back, he said, "Man, we're going to make a lot of business tonight." And I just simply said, "I need to use the restroom." He grabbed me by my hair, put the knife to my throat, and said, "I should have done what I wanted to do the first time I saw you, because I knew you were going to be combative." And he started dragging me down the hall towards the van, which was also where the dumpster was. His plan was to cut my throat, throw me in the dumpster. 2 women happened to walk out of the bathroom, bumped into him, the knife dropped. I ran out the front, and I hear this voice say, "Are you Niki?" And I froze. And it turned out John had come true on his word. He had found 2 people named Chrissy and Buster that they took me to her house, hid me out. My hair was very long, but it was so nappy that she literally had to cut it. And after he was arrested, I got a bus ticket home back to my parents.
So how long, this is the first time I've heard the story. I know you have a book and I'm interested in getting a copy, but how long were you? So you're 15. I've had 15-year-old daughters. I actually have a 10-year-old right now. The thought of the fear of you as a child, all of that it's horrific to even try to imagine that happening. And so you're 15, you run away, you're making trouble. The last thing though you expect is to be locked in this attic. How long were you captive for?
Almost a year.
Almost a year. Okay. And so now you get out, and these people are rescuing you. Do they call the police? Like, was there an action done? I know you called your parents to say, "Hey," they must have wondered where you were.
My father was more concerned. My mother was the type of person that was, "What are people going to say? What are they going to think? Oh, she's probably just off with her friends." But my daddy was very different. And in my book, I talk a lot about, I weave the story into a lot of my daddy's sayings because he was like a walking philosopher. I call him my philosopher in overalls because he was a farmer.
Okay. And so you make it home, and you now have this huge recovery time that you need to, like, you can't just go, life has been turned upside down for you. How did, and since then you've started this ministry that I'd like to talk about as well. So here you are, a child, at 16, you get back to your parents, and I'm sure that there was a lot of things and counseling and things like that that you had to go through. But it's amazing because I know you say that you turned your life over to God at some point during this. Um, what was
I
that
did.
experience like?
When I came home, it did take a little while for me to get my bearings, so to speak. Trauma counseling back then is not what trauma counseling is now. And to answer your former question, you didn't call the police back then. I would have been locked up as a prostitute. I would have been locked up as a runaway. It would have been on my shoulders. And the shame, the guilt, the survivor's guilt is so unbearable. And the shame, you don't want anyone to know. And it took years for me to even start talking about it. But again, I had that love in music. So I went back to school, got into broadcasting. From there, I went from broadcasting from radio into doing voiceovers and singing in a band. And this guy from Nashville heard me, and he was a producer. And he said, and this is before the internet. And I'm thinking, yeah, right, you're really a producer. So I called every legit agency that I knew and said, hey, do you know who this Jack Fultz is? And they were like, oh man, he is the best. He is great. He is the up and up guy, very godly Christian man. So I called him and I said, yeah, I'll come to Nashville. So I went. And as a result, I was very blessed to sing backup with people like Clint Black, Willie Nelson, multiple others. But the trauma was still there. And every time I would get on stage, I could feel the eyes of men looking at me. And I would imagine men thinking, hey, I've had her, or nudging their buddies saying, yeah, I know what she is. And I was about to sign a deal with BMI. And I told Jack, I said, no, I can't do this. I have to leave. And I packed up everything and went back to North Carolina. And I was sitting in my living room one night with insomnia, watching a Christian network channel. There was a guy named Jeff Fenholt giving his testimony that he had also been abused. He was the guy that was the original, he played Jesus Christ Superstar on Broadway, but he played Jesus. And but he was talking about, he had all this fame, and he said, I'm sitting in my house, and he said, I've got a gun in one hand, a bottle of whiskey in the other, and I'm miserable. And he said, and I felt the Holy Spirit speak to me. And I turned off the remote and I just knelt beside my couch and I said, I have tried everything. I have tried drinking. I have tried pills. I have tried everything to block these memories. If you're real, save me. And that was March 5th in 1990. And then 1994, my first victim was a 15-year-old that I had heard someone talking about at church. And I literally went out to find her. I went from there to working with strip club workers, girls that were on the street. And then I moved to Florida. And Florida is the number 3 most reported for human trafficking. I started aligning myself with Homeland, FBI, the local LE, and literally did raids. And I was the mentor. I opened the first safe house in Florida, which we lost because we didn't get funding. But in 2018, Governor Scott and Homeland, they estimated that our ministry had probably been a part of 9 to 10,000 rescues, both men, women, and children.
Wow, that's amazing. And so tell us, what does STAR stand for?
Stop the abuse and rescue.
All right. So
And it's so ironic because all I ever wanted to be was a star. And God's got such a sense of humor because, he gave me this name, Stop the Abuse and Rescue. And I look at it and I say, well, that's not the kind of star I was thinking of, but I'll take it.
yeah, that's amazing. And so, Christopher, we have you on here, and you are a director. I see some movies that I know very well behind you on the screen. When you heard, how did you hear about Niki's story, and what moved you when you heard about it to say, maybe we should do something here?
She called me up and left me a voicemail wanting to get her movie made, and at the time she thought she had some avenues for funding, and so we started collaborating on it. How long ago now? Like a couple years ago?
At least
2 or 3, yeah. But yeah, I think we might have been Facebook friends. I'm not sure, but she
we were.
somehow called me up and left me a voicemail, and I reached back out, and here we are.
And here we are. And so, for those of you who are watching and you've just heard this story, if you want to check out the campaign, the link is below. It is also found at GiveSendGo.com/LDUTS development. Like Daddy used to say, is what the acronym is, LDUTS development. And the link is below. And this is the campaign that you are using to try to raise money for this film. So you wrote a book, like Daddy used to say, and now you want to turn it into a movie. What is your vision, both of you, for this film, and what would you like to see it accomplish?
Well, as for me, I have spent more time as an adult working with trafficking victims than not. And I want to A, create awareness, but B, any profits that come from this film, I want to sow back as a benefactor into vetted organizations so we can reach out to not only help victims, but bring the word of Christ to these people.
And Christopher, what were your thoughts as she pitched this idea to you, some stranger with the voicemail? So that's all we need to do when we have a great idea. Reach out to a producer, director, and
Reach out to a comedy producer. Why not?
it's like this fits right in his wheelhouse. Church people.
Yeah. No, so film and TV are powerful mediums and they help shape culture.
They do.
And whether you're utilizing comedy or hard-hitting drama, I mean, they can be very, very impactful. Just look at the Jim Caviezel one that came out. I'm blanking on the name. What was it, Nikki? What's the name of it?
Sound of Freedom.
Sound of
Thank you,
freedom.
Sound of Freedom. And then another Sound of one called Sound of Hope, I think, was the Possum Trot story.
Yes, that was great.
Fantastic filmmakers there, Joshua and Rebecca Weigel. So yeah, but I mean, those kinds of stories have an impact on culture, and like Nikki said, they can inform you of like, hey, this is real. This really happened. It is happening, and potentially in your backyard. I mean, Akron, Ohio. I grew up in Ohio.
Yeah.
I grew up in Ohio. I was a boy in Ohio in the 70s when this was happening to her.
Yeah, you
So,
never think someone's locked in it just sounds like a horror movie, locked in, like
yeah,
not just one person who's run away, but like you had three people you said up in that attic with you. Like that is just mind blowing. And then to say Florida is one of the most trafficked places, it's just you don't think it happens. And now I'm finding, since that Sound of Freedom movie and, and a lot of talk around this, we can't let the conversation die. It can't be like an emotional movement because we watched a movie and we go, whoa, that's really bad. And then we go back to our normal lives. And I think that's what we need to keep these conversations going. And that's why I think movies like this is so important, where it's real people who went through real things. And now it's not just your story, it's the thousands of people's stories that you've impacted that now have a story as well. And it's not just the freedom from sex trafficking, it's the freedom that God offers each one of us in these messy circumstances. That is the greatest redemption story of them all. And so where are we now in the development process? So obviously you have a campaign on GiveSendGo. How did you choose GiveSendGo? Did you find how did you know about us to even fundraise on us?
Well, actually, Christopher is the one that pointed me to GiveSendGo. I'd never heard of it. And because it was faith-based, I immediately was enthralled. I thought, surely Christians will get on board. But the other thing that I really want to emphasize is anyone that donates, we are a 501c3. It is tax exempt. You will get a tax exempt if you donate. Now, we won't turn away investors, but we really would like some donations.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Go visit. Click on that link, read the story. And one of the cool things about GiveSendGo is that you can give recurring donations. So you could say, I want to give $50 a month and just set it and let it go. And know that you're pouring into somebody who's being the hands and feet of Jesus in a very tangible way. You can also click that pray button, and no other platform that we know has that, where you can actually say, you know what, this month things are a little tight for us, but I'm going to let you know that I am lifting this up before the Lord to provide for these needs. And that is just as important when you're on these types of missions. And then we have the share button. If you're watching, go share this story, share this campaign. That too spreads the depth and width that this story can reach. And so please, if you're watching, click below, give, share, and pray for this story, this campaign. All three are needed in making this successful. So you have this film, and I think you've raised like a little over $1,000. So you're right at the beginning stages of fundraising for this. For the people listening, what are they investing in? You've told a little bit about your story, but like what impact will they be able to be a part of by giving to making this film a reality?
Well, for me, it will be, as I had said before, the profits would be making S.T.A.A.R Ministry a benefactor, not only to help victims, but to help other really well-vetted organizations spread worldwide to reach more and make a bigger impact. Because one thing I don't think people realize, Heather, America is the #1 trafficked country in the world. You know, we've got these borders that are being closed down, and traffickers are savvy. They don't want to spend money, they want to make it. And it's much easier to go to the mall, go to the movies, hear a young girl talking, or a young boy talking for that matter. I'm having problems with my boyfriend. I want to leave home. Statistics say that within 24 hours of someone running away, 98% get trafficked because someone comes up to them and say, hey, you look like you need a hand. Come with me. And the next thing you know, they're locked in this earthly hell. No, there's no other word for it. I mean, it is trauma that you never forget. I have this saying that soldiers and survivors, different battles, same outcome. PTSD.
Mhm. Yeah, I travel a lot, and what I've been seeing even in airports and more public places now are signs about if you see somebody that you think is being trafficked. And like you said, that's in the United States of America. That this is something that's happening under our noses. That again is why movies like this are so important so that we can know the signs even to what to see. I'm like, how do I know? There's been times I drag my kids out and they might be kicking and screaming because they're mad at me. And it's like, how do I know that versus a kid that's being taken or trafficked, or what are those signs that I'm supposed to look for, and how do I step in and help? These are the questions of the people. Yes, we can invest in this movie. This is very important because it again brings it to light. Because bringing things to light, it's in darkness that sin and things hide. And when we shine a light on it, we can actually make a huge difference just shining the light on it. So this movie will shine a light on it. But what are some things just the average person watching going, okay, I'm going to give a little because I want to see this made, but what can I do in my own life? Like, how do I help people? Like, are there people near me that are going through these situations, and how would I even identify that?
Well, there's many, many ways. There's many forms of human trafficking. The definement is force, fraud, or coercion. You'll often see people sitting side the road holding cardboard signs.
Mhm.
People don't realize that a lot of these people are actually being trafficked. They're not keeping the money. They're maybe getting drugs, maybe getting food, and the women are probably also having to have sex with customers that night.
Mhm.
You might see older men with young girls walking down the sidewalk, a house that has men coming and going, women coming and going. Um, there's so many factors. We now have, they have escalated to organ trafficking. One of the worst cases that I ever saw was we found a 9-year-old little girl whose organs had been harvested in a makeshift operating room. And when the pathology report came back, we found that she was given no anesthesia, no drugs, nothing. They literally disemboweled her while she was awake. And that is enough reason right there. It could be your child, your son, your cousin, your mother, your father even. Everybody's got a bullet on their back. Traffickers aren't picky. If they can make money and profit off you, they'll do it.
Back to the film part of this, where are we in the development process? Is it simply being held up by money? Where are you right now in the process of the script? Is the script written? How I don't even know how it all works.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was telling Nikki was, especially when it comes to investors, is like, or getting people on board, one of the first things you have to have is the script. And so our current crowdfunding campaign on GiveSendGo is development for the script.
Okay.
And we've talked about the idea of maybe even doing a proof of concept, either short or trailer.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's to hire a writer to adapt her book, which by the way, you can find her book on Amazon. It's Like Daddy Used to Say by Niki Rowe Cross. But it's adapting that book to a screenplay format, and that's an art form in and of itself. So the development funds are for us to hire a writer to do that process and get it ready for potential investors beyond that.
I'm going to let out a little secret. I mentioned it to you, Christopher, before we started. GiveSendGo is a few months away from revealing a big launch. Nobody actually knows this, so this is the first time I'm going to say it. But we are launching a sister company to GiveSendGo called Film Launcher, and it is going to be a crowdfunding platform for films. And part of that will be having some of these tools, because we know when someone has a film or an idea for a film, they're not necessarily a marketer. They might not know how to write a script. They might not, they might not know all the pieces. How do I distribute it after? I just have an idea for a film. And so we want to have a platform like GiveSendGo where you can go and easily just start a campaign and start having your crowd fundraise. But that you can also utilize your crowd for some of the, hey, do I know a film writer? Is there somebody that would like to be part of that in this process? Maybe you need a cabin in the woods and you crowdfund. Hey, you can be part of the credits if you have a cabin in the woods we need to shoot at, things like that. And so we're going to really make this platform like an all-inclusive, not just crowdfunding, but film launching platform. So we're really excited about that, and we'll let you guys know firsthand when it's ready to launch, because I would love to see this project over there, as well as on GiveSendGo, because again, this is a really, really important topic. And like we saw with the Sound of Freedom, it comes up, everybody feels something, and then life can go on. But it doesn't go on for the people who are being trafficked or the people that are finding themselves in these hard situations. And so we need to continue being diligent and shining lights on this. I'm so thankful that I was able to talk to both of you. How can people who are watching help you? Obviously, give and share. Is there any other way that they can contact you if they have more questions or things like that? How can they get in touch, and what are ways that they can help?
Well, I just want to add one more thing. Anyone who gives, their names will be on the credits as the end of the film rolls. Isn't that right, Christopher?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
You heard it here,
I
ladies
mean,
and
You heard
I
it
gentlemen.
think
here.
they
You
need
heard it here.
credit.
Yeah, the credits, you will get credit in the credits.
I think it's only fair. I mean, if you give your hard-earned money for something to be that impactful, why not have your name on the big screen? You've earned it. It's over to you now, Christopher.
So the like you said, I mean, honestly, the biggest ways that people can help is praying, giving, and sharing. Because I mean, anybody who's done crowdfunding before knows that you need eyeballs on it. You don't just put up something and magically attracts people. People have to see it somehow. So giving, sharing, and of course, most importantly, praying. And as far as how can people reach you, Nikki?
Um, Niki at STAARMINISTRY.com, which is Nikki at starministry.com.
Yeah, two
Amazing.
A's and star. And my
Yeah.
handle on social media and so forth is at director CSS.
CSS. That's good. Good little handle there. Well, I am so glad you guys were able to join me today and talking about this. I find it a very, very valuable topic, and it is something we need to continue talking about. Thank you so much for continuing to use your story. What a lot of people, we all have hard things, maybe not as hard as what you shared, Nikki, but we all have things, and often God takes those hard things and they make them our most beautiful story. And we don't understand it, but that's what kind of God we serve, right? Like a God that will take the messes that even sometimes we make and make them into some of the most beautiful stories. And that is why here at GiveSendGo, we offer our platform to everybody and say, you know what, we're going to share the hope of Jesus. Doesn't matter what mess you found yourself in. It doesn't matter, all of that. We're here to allow you to fundraise, and we're going to share Jesus with you while you do it. And I'm so glad to be with like-minded people whose life's mission, this is like the body of Christ embodied right here, right? We have the filmmaker, the crowdfunding platform, and the S.T.A.A.R ministry, human trafficking rescuer, people, all three of us in total different aspects of the body, but all working together for one purpose, and that's to lead people to Jesus. And so thank you for joining me today. If you want to check out more about this campaign, click the link below. Thanks for joining us. And remember, always, you can also shine brightly right where you are. Have a great day. Bye.